In most campers, this is the room where the money ran out. Not here. That is a Panasonic toilet with its own control panel, then leather armchairs, a real table, and a dishwasher in a vehicle under 20 feet long. Hey everyone, welcome back to Inside Luxury Campers. This is the Venice V9 Ultra, and when you park it, two slide-outs push out and it turns into an apartment. $112,000 worth. Let's find out whether it earns that. We start outside because the first surprise is out here. Lift this hatch and there is a second kitchen built into the flank, a sink and a cutting board. The fold-out table next to it has its own water and power panel, so the whole outdoor setup runs without a single hose or cable crossing the doorway. Inside, the steps are carpeted, which sounds like nothing until you use them barefoot. 4 cream seats face each other around a table, 2 more face forward for travel, and the bed is just beyond, and that is before either slide-out has moved. Now the room that tells you the truth about any camper, because it is usually where the money ran out. Not here. This is a full wet bath finished to the same level as the rest of the vehicle, and you can see straight into it from the kitchen, toilet, sink, and cabinet in one waterproof room. The shower has a handheld head, a real window, and a mirrored cabinet beside it. Look up, and there is a grab bar set into the ceiling. That is a detail you only appreciate the first time you shower in a vehicle that is not perfectly level. The wooden shelves take your bottles, and they are lipped so nothing walks off them on a mountain road. The vanity underneath is a proper cabinet, not a plastic box glued to a wall. The window has a fly screen so you can leave the room venting while you're out. And that matters more than it sounds, because the fastest way to ruin a camper is to seal wet air inside it. A curtain pulls across to keep the dry half dry. Beside the toilet, there is a control panel for the lights and the extraction, with an indicator that confirms it is running. And the toilet itself is a Panasonic heated seat, washer function, the same unit you would put in an apartment, in a vehicle under 20 feet long. The faucet stands against a dark marble backsplash, towels hang under recessed lighting, and the shelf above the toilet glows softly at night, so nobody is hunting for a switch at 3 in the morning. Underneath all of this, the floor is heated, and the water tanks are heated and insulated as well. 85 gallons of fresh water that will not freeze on you in the mountains. There's a second control panel by the door for the same functions, so you are not reaching across a wet room to switch anything. This is not a camper bathroom you tolerate on a trip. It is one you would actually choose to use, which is a sentence I have not said about any vehicle this size. The bed sits under a full run of overhead lockers, and every one of them is on a soft, close hinge. Push it with a knuckle and it finishes the job itself quietly. There is a window at the pillow with a shade that pulls down one-handed, and a curtain that closes this whole end off from the living area, so one person can sleep while the other is still up. Storage above the mattress is what separates a camper you visit from a camper you live in. Your things get a home instead of living in a bag on the floor, and the walls up here carry the same insulation as the rest of the body. This thing is built for winter, with heating in the floor and heated tanks underneath, which is why rain on the roof does not wake you and a cold morning does not either. Back in the galley, and this is where the appliance list stops reading like a camper list. A Panasonic microwave is built in above the cabinetry at eye level, so you are not bending over a hot dish to get it out. Beside it, the seat adjusts with one hand. Then the fridge, an imported Thetford about 6 cubic feet across 2 doors. That is a household refrigerator with a real freezer, not a cooler with a compressor bolted to it, and it means you shop once a week instead of every second morning. Open it and the shelves run full depth, with door bins that take bottles standing upright. It runs on the battery bank around the clock, parked in a field with nothing plugged in, which is the whole reason a fridge this size is even an option here. Open the microwave and it is a full-size cavity, not the little box that usually gets fitted. This black handle beside it releases another panel, and behind that is more storage. The whole cabin is built this way, volume hidden inside anything that looks like a wall. Through this end, you get the sleeping zone, a made-up bed with a book still lying on it, curtains that close the area off completely, and a mirrored wardrobe that opens fully even in a narrow aisle. Inside there is metal shelving rather than fabric pockets, so clothes stay where you folded them instead of rattling for 300 miles. The locker above glows on its own light strip, and then this, which almost no motorhome carries at all. A Medea washer-dryer, plumbed in behind a wooden door with the utility connections in the cabinet next to it. It washes and dries in one drum, which is the only version that works in a vehicle, because you cannot hang a line out in the rain. Beside it, a deep bay is lined in textured flooring, so gear does not slide while you drive. Waste from all of this goes into 21 gallons of gray water and the same again of black, both tanked underneath and both heated, so nothing turns solid on a winter night. Shut that door and the entire laundry disappears into what looks like ordinary joinery. Now the main run. A sink under the window, wooden cabinets above and below, and a range hood that vents outside instead of recirculating steam through the cabin. Utensils hang on a rail within reach of the cooktop. Open the upper locker and there are straps inside holding stacked plates through corners. A small thing, but it tells you this interior was drawn by people who have actually driven one. The splashback runs the full length behind the counter and wipes down in a single pass, and the window above the sink opens so steam from a pan leaves the room instead of settling into the cabinets and the headlining above them. The faucet is a full-height mixer with room under it for a real pot, and there is genuinely enough counter here to cook a meal rather than assemble one. Everything below runs on metal rails. The drawers pull out fully loaded and stay level. The cabinet with glass shelves shuts on a soft close, and these double doors open onto pantry depth you would expect in a house. Under the floor of all of it sit 85 gallons of fresh water, heated and insulated, with diesel floor heating running underneath. That is what makes a kitchen like this usable in February rather than just in photographs. Nothing rattles, nothing sags, and none of it would look out of place in a kitchen that never moves. Around the corner is the reason this vehicle has two slide-outs at all. With both of them out, the lounge is wider than the vehicle itself, 4 leather seats around a table by the window, and enough floor left to walk past somebody who is sitting down. That is the one thing clever joinery cannot fake. The overhead cabinets carry indirect lighting, so at night the room is lit softly from above, rather than by one bare panel in the ceiling. The table has cup holders set into it, which sounds like a detail until the first time somebody breaks. A kettle is built into its own heating base with cup holders beside it, so hot water never depends on the cooktop being free. Under the counter sits the control panel with the outlets, and there are more sockets and USB ports between the seats, so everything charges without an adapter draped across the table. And then this seat. It is a massage chair in white leather with Venice V9 stitched into the headrest and a 3-point belt for travel. After 6 hours on the road, it earns its place, and the controls sit in the armrest where your hand already is. The diamond stitching runs the length of the backrest, the upholstery changes texture on the bench opposite, and the whole set is rated for travel rather than just for sitting. Look at how much seat there is per person here. This is 4 separate armchairs, not a bench split into portions. The controls are lit, they sit under your fingers on the side of the base, and each seat adjusts on its own without disturbing anybody else at the table. In a vehicle where the lounge is also the dining room and the office, that matters every single day. This drawer hides a monitor wired into the exterior cameras so you can check all 4 sides of the vehicle without opening the door, which is worth a great deal when you are parked somewhere unfamiliar overnight. The television lifts onto the wall opposite, positioned so it works from the seats rather than only from the bed. Above the doorway sits a Daikin split air conditioner, a 1.5 horsepower unit, the same class you would have at home, and quiet enough to leave running while you talk. There's a second panel by the entrance for the lights and the climate, so you are not walking the length of the vehicle to turn a lamp off. And the door itself is electric, with a child lock. It opens and closes on a button from where you are sitting. Every one of these systems has a control within reach of where you actually sit. The difference between equipment that gets used and equipment that gets ignored. The seats swivel and recline, so the same furniture does dinner, the evening, and the drive without being converted into anything. 6 people can sit in here, 4 can sleep, and with the slides out, none of them are climbing over each other to do it. And then the appliance nobody expects to find in a motorhome at all. That is a dishwasher, built in under the counter. It sounds like an indulgence until you have spent a week washing dishes in a bowl in a sink the size of a laptop. It runs off the same battery bank as everything else, so it works parked in a field with nothing plugged in. You load it after dinner and go outside, and the day ends the way it does at home, rather than with a queue at the sink. And when it is not running, it is a cabinet door like any other. Everything along this run sits flush, so the galley reads as furniture rather than as a row of appliances. Here is what carries all of it: 21.5 kilowatt hours of lithium at 48 volts, a 5,000 watt inverter, 1,600 watts of solar, and this converter charges the bank off the engine as you drive. Up front, the cab is IVECO, and it feels like a vehicle rather than a van conversion. The touchscreen takes navigation and climate, with real dials underneath for temperature. Everything you reach for while moving stayed physical, which is the right call. The wheel carries the audio and cruise controls. Even the door panel gets wood trim, proper window switches, and a pocket you can actually use. Above the cab, there is a second double bed, 6.5 feet by 4.5, with lockers along its length. That is a proper bed, rather than the coffin shelf you get in most alcoves, and it is why this vehicle sleeps 4 without anybody converting a dinette. There are outlets right at the mattress, AC and USB together, so both phones charge where you sleep. Back down in the lounge, the bench seating is soft enough to sit on all evening, with a wooden chest beside it. The drawer underneath slides out to proper depth. This is where the chairs and the awning mat live, rather than on the bed. The zone does 3 jobs: dining room for 4, lounge for the evening, and the corridor between the 2 ends of the vehicle. The side door is wide and power operated with a child lock. The step deploys with it, and the exterior table folds out right beside the opening. The outdoor half of your day is set up in about a minute, without walking back inside for a single thing. And that is the test a camper either passes or does not. Out here, the second kitchen is the real thing, not a token faucet. The cutting board pulls out on its tray over the sink and lifts straight off when you want the basin free. Beside it sits an induction cooktop and a diesel burner. Induction when you're on hookup, diesel when you're not, feeding off the same tank that runs the heating, so cooking out here never touches your battery or a gas bottle. The mesh burner holds its flame in wind, which is exactly the condition you're cooking in outside. And the compartment behind it carries a proper shelf, so the outdoor kit has somewhere to live, instead of riding around in the footwell of the cab. Around the back, you can see what those slide-outs actually are. The rear module pushes out on its own, the side one behind it, and together they turn a corridor into a room. Underneath, hydraulic stabilizer jacks drop to take the movement out of the floor. With 2 people walking around inside, you feel that difference immediately, and it is why a vehicle this tall does not sway every time somebody stands up. The spare wheel is carried on the back, where you can reach it without unpacking the storage lockers first. The frame around the taillight is structural rather than trim, and the whole rear wall carries the load of that module when it is extended. And the subframe under all of this is hot dip galvanized, with a 20-year warranty on it. Corrosion in the frame is what normally kills a motorhome at year 8, long before anything inside it wears out, and here it is the part they guarantee longest. In the cockpit, this is a 3-liter turbo diesel with a ZF 8-speed automatic. The badge on the grille reads Highmatic, which is IVECO's name for that transmission. It shifts itself so a 14,000-pound vehicle drives like a large car, which matters far more than any horsepower figure when you're threading through a town you do not know. The console keeps the essentials in reach, the cluster is clear, and there is air suspension underneath with RV-specific dampers, so the body is not fighting every joint in the road. This is the chassis you want under something this heavy, and it is the reason the interior can be built this solidly without shaking itself apart. From outside, the body is yacht-grade fiberglass, which is what keeps the weight down and the road noise out. It measures just under 20 feet long, 8 feet wide, and 11 feet tall on a 6.5-ton chassis. And in the Chinese market, that combination matters because it keeps the vehicle inside the license class most buyers already hold. The door opens onto steps that deploy with it, and the storage lockers run the length of the flank underneath, big enough for the outdoor furniture rather than just for hoses. A vent strip runs the length of the roofline. The brochure fills in the rest, the double slide version, the dimensions, the weight, and a 5-year warranty on the entire electrical system. That last one matters more than any styling detail because on a vehicle carrying this much lithium, the electrics are the part you would actually worry about. So we finish where the whole design really lives. This touchscreen, which drives both slide-outs with a second panel beside it for the lights and the climate. Watch them come in. The side and the rear sections retract slowly and evenly, and in about a minute, an apartment turns back into a vehicle under 20 feet long that fits an ordinary parking space. That is the trick the entire layout is built on, and it is what made everything else possible. The dishwasher, the washer dryer, the full wet bath, the massage chair, the 6 cubic foot fridge. All of it comes to about $112,000, which puts this up against a serious European motorhome, and on equipment it beats most of them outright. What it never feels like is a list of features bolted into a van. It feels like somebody designed an apartment first and then worked out how to drive it. Thank you so much for joining me on this tour. Subscribe to Inside Luxury Campers for more reviews like this one, and tell me in the comments which rig you want us to walk through next. Safe travels, everyone.